Good morning. So today I'm still talking about the Dhammapada and I'm moving on to a section called evil. It's a very strong word, isn't it, evil? And I know that some people that come to Buddhism find it just too much. It's all very well talking about unskillfulness. That word is very much more palatable in a way, isn't it? Unskillfulness. We can all admit that we do things that, they're not great and they don't produce very good effects, and we're quite happy to accept that that is part of us. But evil, that's so much stronger, isn't it? Much stronger. So I'm going to talk about why actually I think evil is an appropriate word. I mean, we find it in a lot of Buddhist texts. It's a very strong word. It's not one that we like to hear. Perhaps we shy away from it, thinking it couldn't relate to us. But I'm going to argue that actually I think it can. So in a way, it's very appropriate, this section on evil turning up at the moment, because of course we've seen what's going on in the world at the moment. The demonstrations over the murder of George Floyd, a black man by a white policeman that's supposed to be holding up the law, holding up all goodness and how we're supposed to be living, and murdering somebody. And somebody with prejudice, It's just drawn out something that's been going on for millennia. Racism and prejudice. So it's easy to think, look, this is nothing to do with me. It's him. We can all point a finger and say, this evil man, as if he's somehow completely different to us. And that can be quite dangerous, because it stops us seeing our own prejudices, our own racism. And, well, of course, being the age I am, I was born some years, how many years after the war? Well, not that many, 8 or 9 years after the Second World War finished. And I was reflecting on the Holocaust, which is something that I think about quite a lot, and read about a lot. Because, well, as 6 million Jews were murdered. And they weren't murdered by one man. They were murdered by a lot of people. And they were murdered in camps that were in the midst of societies that were living their lives, often knowing what was going on there. How could it happen? How could that happen? So we cannot close our eyes and say this is nothing to do with us. Evil happens by these few, 1 or 2 evil people. No, we all have capacity to close our eyes to terrible evil. And who knows but that in different circumstances we couldn't be part of that. We wouldn't be part of that. And I think it's an incredible self-satisfied attitude to think that that it's nothing to do with us, but also that we couldn't have been part of it. We can't know that. We don't know that in certain circumstances we wouldn't act in the most horrendous way. So I'm saying that because I know evil is a strong word, but actually we are, not just other people, but we are capable of tremendous evil. And we need to acknowledge that, because when we practice Buddhism and meditation, it's about becoming more aware. And when we become aware, we become aware of our shadow side, our dark side, our potential for great evil, but also for great good. Great evil and great good. We've got all that potential inside ourselves. So now I'm going to turn to a couple of verses from this section in the Dhammapada called Evil. It says, "Let no one think lightly of evil. It will not touch me. Drop by drop is the pitcher filled, and little by little the full becomes filled with evil. Let no one think lightly of evil. It will not touch me. Drop by drop is the pitcher filled, and little by little the full becomes filled with evil." So what we habitually think, how we habitually act, that we will become. We are our behaviours. We are what we think and what we do. And so it matters. That's the thing. It matters. And what we think can often seem like something very private. It's just ourselves. What does it matter? What we think. Well, it's because, in a way, we're tainting ourselves all the time. We're feeding ourselves. I said this before. We're feeding our minds all the time, just as we're feeding our body. And I do think it's fascinating how what we feed our body with, particularly today, we can become very concerned with. We want things that are organic, that do us good. There are all these different diets to make us healthy. But do we care about what we feed our mind with, what we're feeding our mind with all the time? So some years ago, I started making choices, noticing the effect that, maybe seeing violent films or reading about violent, anything that was particularly violent, had what effect it had on me. And also the effect of well, it wasn't pornography, but things that were explicitly sexual. What effect did that have on me? When I was younger, did it have an effect of making feeding craving, for example? Just noticing the effect that things have. And I know there's a big argument about whether what we watch, what children watch, has an effect. I think it's fascinating that there is an argument that it doesn't have an effect. Well, why wouldn't it? We know that what we expose ourselves to, don't forget, it's what we're interested in then, where we lean towards. So when we learn to meditate and come across Buddhism, what we're doing is we are, I don't like the word refining our minds, really. Refining. It always suggests to me something that's, here's a prejudice of mine, that suggests something about high culture or something, refining our minds. But actually I do get it, so I need to find another word, really. Actually, I prefer purifying our minds. I think we are purifying our minds. We've got a lot of garbage. We've got a lot of excess in our minds that need to purify. But I also see it in terms of I say a lot about simplifying our lives, and I think that's a good way to see things, to simplify towards the good. So, yeah, I certainly take seriously things like guarding the doors of the senses, for example. So what I was saying about, maybe not watching violent things. I can't watch violence now. It feels like poison. It feels like an assault on me or something. And that's interesting that I feel like that, because I don't find that things just kind of reverberate in my mind. Some people, they'll say they don't sleep very well if they've if they've got things on their mind. I'm quite good at letting things go, but nevertheless, I don't underestimate what it's that silt that it's putting at the bottom of my mind. So, yes, this drop by drop is the pitcher filled. Well, that's the thing. We don't notice. And when we don't notice, it means we don't take responsibility. You know, we should notice. We should notice that actually, yeah, I suppose with practice, it's like with Buddhist practice, we look back and we think, well, am I different to how I was 10 years ago from all this meditation and so on? And, you know, hopefully we see that actually we do feel different. People, our friends experience us differently and so on. And likewise, if we do good, let us not think lightly of good. It cannot be for me. Drop by drop the pitcher is filled, and little by little the wise one is filled with merit. So it happens gradually, it happens slowly. And after all, that's why we call it Buddhist practice, meditation practice, because we're practicing. It doesn't happen automatically. And we tend to want a quick fix nowadays. There's lots of promises out there of instant transformation for ourselves, but there is no instant transformation. It takes time and it takes practice. We become more and more skilled in what is wholesome, if you like, you know, what benefits ourselves. And we're doing it, you know, as much for selfish reasons as for other reasons. In a way, we have to start from a point of selfishness to see that we benefit. But what's really important is that others benefit, that the world benefits from our skillfulness. So yeah, that's enough for today, and I'll see you tomorrow.